Hello and welcome back once again to looking at some of Lovecraft film adaptations. I am your host Juho Aittanen and I'm the director of Hypnos short film, a Lovecraft adaptation on itself. Anyway, last time we left with a really upbeat voice, Reanimator, awesome stuff. But the producer of that film, Yuzna, continued on to make some Lovecraft adaptations in the future. This one is from 1994. It's Necronomicon, Book of the Dead. Necronomicon, as it's usually called, is an anthology film. It contains 3 films from 3 directors, one of which being the titular producer Yuzna. There's also a 4th film, which is kind of the wrapper around the 3 others. It stars Jeffrey Combs from Reanimator once again, but this time he plays H.P. Lovecraft himself.
I have an appointment. Howard P. Lovecraft.
Combs himself really kind of dislikes this role because it takes Lovecraft and it has really nothing to do with the actual live person. It's more of an Indiana Jones action thing. But the standout thing in his performance is, of course, he got Yuzna to tone down the Indiana Jonesness, and the makeup on his face is absolutely awesome. It's done by the same guys who at the same time were doing Babylon 5. The wrapper story goes that Lovecraft is going to look at some old texts from the forbidden book Necronomicon in a forbidden library. The library itself is actually a tomb in Compton, and it's only set up so that you have fake bookshelves around the mausoleum. And from the people who were there, they say that the smell of corpses was in the air. The connecting lifeline between these 3 films is that the book Necronomicon will be featured in each one of them, and that they all have very convoluted stories. So let's dive right into the first one, The Drowned. The first film is hardly a Lovecraft adaptation at all. It tells a story of a guy who inherits a hotel, an ex-mansion, which you can guess that there's an ancient evil living beneath. Our protagonist reads that his ancestor who used to own the place summoned his dead wife and son back to life and then killed himself because, you know, as summonings go, they usually never end happily. Our brilliant main then decides that this seems like the thing to do himself, so he tries to summon his own dead wife back to life. You can imagine how that goes. So, bish bash bosh, the guy has to fight his way through the tentacle morphing wife, and in the end he just kinda murders the ancient evil which had been living there for thousands of years. This story is nothing special, it kinda nearly kills the whole movie. But thankfully, it gets kinda better in the next one, The Cold. The segment was actually the first film in America by a Japanese filmmaker, Katsunori Ito, who back home was mostly known for his Gamera films. You know Gamera? The giant turtle monster like Godzilla? The original story of Cool Air is a pretty standard affair. You've got a mysterious old man living upstairs, and it turns out that he's keeping himself alive unnaturally long by pumping his room full of cold air. In the adaptation, on the other hand, we have, and let me check, Murder plot love triangle, wrapper story, illegitimate undead love child, none of which Lovecraft wrote. Somehow Lovecraft always ends up with these kind of adaptations, the really weird ones where they just pile on stuff until it turns totally ridiculous. And then we have the final segment, directed by the producer himself, Yuzna, and Whispers. It's not really an adaptation of any single Lovecraft story. The story is super simple. A cop gets dragged away into a huge warehouse with, again, an ancient evil living beneath it, and another cop, who is also pregnant to the first one, has to chase him down. Especially the standout characters here are Don Calfa and Judith Drakes, the Benedicts, which are a really weird couple. And they seem to have awesome amounts of fun with this material.
Right down here, dear. Right here, that's fine. Are you pregnant, young lady? I always wanted to have kids.
You got a million reasons against it. I'm too young.
I wasn't too young,
old,
and
or
I'm not too old.
You weren't able.
Well, I'm able now. I'm ready.
Just shut up. All I want to do is find my partner. You just get me in the tunnel.
You can't go down there by yourself. The butcher. You're coming with me.
All righty. I'll go clear it out.
This story doesn't have a happy ending. I'm not going to spoil it to you because this is the only reason to actually, I think, watch Necronomicon Book of the Dead, but her faith is horrible and it's accompanied by some pretty awesome special effects. In the end, Necronomicon is not very Lovecraftian. It's actually more interesting to look at this through the lens of the producer Brian Yuzna, which I'm kind of a fan of. I described him previously as a magnificent bastard, and that he is. And he's bastard mostly from the perspective of a Lovecraft fan. He has managed to produce a plethora of adaptations, or so-called adaptations from Lovecraft, but at the same time he's kinda responsible for a lot of misadaptations and a lot of like really hackneyed stuff. But next time on this show we are going to be looking at the really opposite side, the counter-reaction to films in the style of Brian Yuzna. We are going to be looking at 2005's Call of Cthulhu.